Hi, I'm Simon K. Jones, and you're watching my Substack for Beginners series. Today's video is less about nuts and bolts and more about strategy. How can you make your publication look and feel like it belongs to you? This video will provide something of a checklist for you to go through on your own publication, so grab a notepad and take some notes. For all of this, we're delving back into your Substack dashboard and then into the settings. In a previous video, I did a kind of whistle-stop tour down the settings to tell you what was actually in there. Today we're going to focus in on the settings that affect the presentation of your publication. So first up, your publication name. That's obviously a big one. Naming things can be very stressful. I'd recommend zeroing in on what your writing is all about. What is the single most important aspect of it? And then coming up with a name, don't try to get too clever. This needs to work for readers at a glance. Pulling my publication name apart, you can see I kept it very simple and focused. Write More with Simon K. Jones. It emphasises that A, my newsletter is about writing, and B, it is about productivity. I'm not going to be focusing solely on the academic process of how to be a good writer. Instead, my stuff is more about how to write more, how to be more productive. If you're someone who would benefit from that insight, you'll see the name and click with it straight away. Adding with Simon K. Jones is about keeping my publication distinct. After all, there's no shortage of newsletters about writing. It also gets my author name front and centre, which helps from a branding point of view. And if the term branding makes you recoil in horror, don't worry, this is very light touch stuff. It just means that if a reader of the newsletter encounters me somewhere else, they'll have a better chance of remembering my name. And let's face it, Simon Jones isn't the most unique moniker. I'll take whatever boosts I can get, right? Then we get to the short description. In my opinion, this is the hardest part to get right. My current description is serialized science fiction stories and articles on how to be a more productive writer. But I've rewritten my description countless times over the years, experimenting with what works best, and I'm sure I will be changing it again at some point in the near future. Sometimes I emphasize the productivity tips. Currently I mention my fiction up front. There's one point when I didn't mention the fiction at all. My main tip here, especially if you write about a range of topics, is to not try to include everything in the short description. Keep it focused. What's the single main thing to point out? Your publication name and description are important because they serve as the front cover and are what people will encounter first. So if a new reader visits simonkjones.substack.com, this is what they see. The name and description are front and centre. If someone ends up on my Substack profile somehow, it's the publication name and short description that is shown below. Same goes for anyone hovering over my name in a comment or notes. My description is simple and to the point. If someone's going to be interested in my work, they'll know that by that one line. And similarly, anyone not interested will also know immediately too. At the moment, I don't mention, for example, these video guides in the description. I don't mention that I'm blogging a fun rewatch of a classic 90s TV show. I can't fit everything in, so I've had to prioritise. People don't want to read a massive list here of all of your interests. Those priorities can shift over time, and I really encourage you to revisit this stuff every few months. Site design I'm going to skip over today as it's a whole other kettle of fish and needs its own video really. So the square logo image represents your publication in various places, usually in a smallish kind of size. Think of it like a profile picture, but instead of for you, it's for your publication. You can go for a picture of yourself if you want, if that makes sense. I've gone for a cropped version of my book's front cover. In this small size, you can't pick out the details, but you still get that kind of triptych of vertical colour bars. It doesn't matter if the details can't be made out. The point is that people who subscribe will recognise the shape and those colours at a glance. This is going to be very specific to you, of course, but try to find an image that has that element of instant familiarity. You want people to immediately recognize it and go, oh, there's that thing I enjoy reading. And like I say, it could be a photo of you, just make sure it's a decent photo. I'll get to the About page in a moment, but first let's just skip on ahead to the branding section of settings to find the word mark and the cover photo. The word mark is an image that displays on your navigation bar at the top of the website instead of plain text. You can use any image of the right shape. I've gone for something quite simple. It's still just text, but by using an image, I'm able to adjust the font weighting in a way that you can't if you're just going with the actual text version. It's a subtle change in this case, but it emphasizes the write more part of the title. The cover photo is the other part of your welcome screen, so it's very much working as the front cover, literally, for potential new subscribers. The image I'm using has the title of the publication baked into it, so I've also activated the Hide My Publications name option here. The front cover that I'm using is from my Tales from the Triverse book, and like I say, you might not be picking out the specific details when you see it in this context, but I think readers of a certain type of science fiction and fantasy will probably latch on to some of this, and for everyone else, it's hopefully just a pretty image that catches your eye. With all of this stuff, don't overthink it. Make sure you pick images that look high quality and purposeful. If you're not a designer but want to create graphics that look decent, then I suggest taking a look at Canva. It's a free online design tool that is actually surprisingly good. Remember that your publication's name, short description, square logo, and cover image are what many new subscribers will see as their first impression. Think of it from their perspective. Is it obvious what your publication is about? Okay, in the second half of this video for paid subscribers, I'm going to take a closer look at what you should include on your About page. This is a critical part of your publication and will frequently make the difference between someone subscribing or deciding not to, so you do need to get it right. Before we get into that, I haven't done much paid exclusive stuff on this newsletter, so I also wanted to make clear that if you can't afford a paid subscription, for any reason, doesn't matter, and think you'd benefit from the knowledge, do just drop me a line. The newsletter takes a lot of time to produce, so if you're someone who's in a position where you can afford to support it, then that's brilliant, and thank you very much. But if you can't, and let's face it, at the moment there's all sorts of reasons why you might not be able to, just hit reply and I will sort you out with a comp subscription so that you can access the information. One way or another, we're all in this together, and being a writer is hard enough as it is, right?